Probably intimidated.
Well, let's take a live look outside the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., where President Trump did attend for a time the Supreme Court hearing this morning as justices took up his bid to end birthright citizenship. This makes President Trump the first sitting president to attend oral arguments at the nation's highest court. Under the order, birthright citizenship would be limited to people with at least one parent who is a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident. Those opposed to the order say it violates the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment says, quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. The case marks a major challenge to more than 150 years of legal precedent. Court expected to have a decision here by the end of June. But here to talk about this case this morning is Professor Andrew Siegel with Seattle University. Thanks so much for being with us. First, we were just kind of talking about it coming out of the break here. What did you make of the president showing up for this?
I don't think that there's anything untoward about it, but it was unprecedented, and it's kind of unclear what his motivations were. I think the expectation is that he was there to kind of show the personal stakes to the justices he appointed in ways that wreak a little bit of intimidation, but I don't think that there's a major consequence for it.
All right, let's dive into the 14th Amendment. That's kind of what this is all about here. Can you explain how this was established and what it covers?
Sure. The 14th Amendment is one of three amendments that were passed right after the Civil War that kind of restated the basis of the country, the relationships that govern the country, what our basic values were, and they changed a lot. They're often called the Second Founding. The 14th Amendment in particular, it's the most important. What it does is guarantee to the citizens against states and against the federal government basic equality and basic rights. And the Citizenship Clause, which is at issue here, is the first sentence of the 14th Amendment, which is designed to kind of include in the national community really everybody born here and announce that they are the people who we're talking about in the rest of the rights conferring amendment.
How is modern day interpretation of citizenship different from when the 14th Amendment was first created, do you think?
Well, I think that the big thing to note is that it isn't that different, right? That we've had 150 years of pretty much continuous tradition, as you mentioned up front, with the understanding that this is one of the few constitutional issues that were settled in clear language, and that all sides of the political spectrum basically agreed about until 6, 8, 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I should mention that in this morning's arguments, the Solicitor General arguing for the president says times have changed since the 14th Amendment was enacted, telling the court, quote, we're in a new world where 8 billion people are one plane ride away from the same Constitution. What did you think of that exchange?
I thought it was kind of telling. I thought that it was one of the clearest tells from one of the swing justices of where they're going here. I think that the court has always believed, and most commentators have always believed, that the language is clear and that the founders of the 14th Amendment didn't envision this adapting to times in any significant way. They wanted to lock in basic rules and a broad principle of citizenship, and that no circumstances on the ground are going to change that. And Chief Justice Roberts suggested with that and some of his other questions that he's on board with that previously consensus interpretation.
What limit exists on presidential powers when it comes to reinterpreting constitutional amendments?
The president doesn't have any formal power to change the meaning of the Constitution, but the president is kind of a leader of a political coalition that thinks about constitutional issues and has lawyers working for them, and sometimes presidents play a significant role in focusing people on new arguments, in suggesting that pre-existing consensuses might have been wrong, in suggesting that we need to have new cases that take a new look at things. That's what President Trump was trying to do here. He was just trying to do it in one of the areas of law that was most settled, and one of the areas of law in which there was really no momentum or reason to change anything, and I think he's running into a roadblock at the court.
Yep. If birthright citizenship was revoked, what do you think the fallout would be from that?
Well, it really depends on what the next several steps would be. I mean, immediately, this is intended to be prospective, and it would create all sorts of logistical nightmares in terms of figuring out who's a citizen and what documentation you would need. Would require people born after this date to get separate proof other than their birth certificate that would establish their citizenship. For example, all people, not just not just people who fall into these categories. And the bigger fear, of course, is that a future administration could go back and say, I know we did it prospectively initially, but that was just by our grace, and we don't want to give that grace anymore, and we want to go after all these people who claim to be citizens, and we said we're citizens, but no longer are. And since such a huge percentage of this country traces their citizenship originally to an ancestor who couldn't meet the documentary requirements here, I mean, a worst case scenario, which we're far from, but a worst case scenario would really call into doubt the citizenship of a large percentage of this country.
All right, prediction?
You know, you can always go broke betting on the court, and it's not, you know, you don't want to take too much from oral argument, but it looks like it's about 7-2 against the president if you had to take a bet.
And that's a tough one coming off his last loss over the tariffs, right?
It is, although he's won some pretty big ones too, including ones that people thought that he had no chance in. So I know he's complaining about the court, but he's got no real axe to grind there.
All right, Professor Andrew Siegel from Seattle University, thanks so much for your insight.
Thank you.
Great to have you in here.